Today on the show, I have Michael Pizzuto. Michael is a working actor, emphasis on the working part. He has been in a ton of stuff since he was 16 years old. He's done cartoons, he's done TV, he's done film. Most recently, you can see him on HBO's McMillions. He plays crime boss Jerry Colombo. He also has three cartoons on Netflix, three shows on Netflix, yeah, and two
Yeah,
on Amazon Prime. But
yeah.
I think his most challenging yet rewarding role of his life was playing my childhood friend back in Detroit in the 80s and 90s. Pizzuto, what do you have to say about that? Thoughts?
Whew, that's true. We've known each other since kindergarten, huh? It's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you used to chase me around and try to kiss me, but I feel like I wasn't the only girl that you did that to.
Oh no, no, I was solely
You were quite the player back then. So
the other kids that I chased, the other girls, those didn't mean anything.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Yeah. So tell me about you. Like, what's going on in your world? So you've got three shows out on Netflix. You've got two shows out on Amazon. You just did this show
so
on
yeah.
HBO. What's next for you?
So I live here out in Los Angeles, and I have moved out here just under 2 years ago because prior to that I was living in Hong Kong, and I was there for almost 13 years in Hong Kong, and it was over there that I started to do the majority of the voice acting. So I started doing things with Cartoon Network Asia, Disney Asia, Animax, and it was the idea to come out here and conquer Hollywood. So that's why I came out here, and things have been going well so far. Can't
So
complain.
tell me about like how you got started because the road to being an actor, as we both know, is not an easy road. It's pretty challenging. I mean, how did you I remember you and all your drama club in high school.
Oh,
But I remember you were
remember
doing
you and all your drama. Yes. No, that was true. No, I started off pretty young when I was a teenager because my mom was involved with community theater, and she got involved uh, through the musicals, and I would sometimes go to the rehearsals and just do my homework, or so watch. And I remember that she said something to me. I was 14 years old at the time, and she said, Mike, I'd get you involved in these shows, but these kids that are in the show, I mean, they sing, they dance, they act, and they're just good. And I don't think that you would fit in really, or that you would feel comfortable. So I, of course, saw that as a, oh yeah, well, moment.
I'll
And
show
so
you. Yeah.
I'll show you. I'm gonna be on TV. I'm gonna make it big, mama. I'll show you. So yeah, so I
And you
started
did.
spiting my mother. No, um,
You're like, I didn't even want to be an actor. I wanted to be an accountant, but I had to go
that's
spite my
right.
mother. So
Yeah, to this day, I'm still proving her wrong. No, uh, things have changed over the years.
look
No.
at me
Uh,
now. Yeah.
Like hit me that. So yeah, and I started doing bits and pieces of theater, then community theater, and then all of a sudden I started getting my first paycheck for a job at age 16, and I thought to myself, wow, maybe I might be able to do this for a living.
What was your
Uh,
first job? What was
my
your first
first
paid
job,
job?
it was in Detroit. There was a show. It was a paid dinner theater show called of Babes in Toyland,
Oh, okay.
and it was this historic theater downtown Detroit. I wish I could remember the name of the theater, but I think it was something. I think it might have been the Friars Club that was there, but it was a lot of fun. And I just remember I probably didn't get paid much. I think maybe like 20, 25 bucks a performance or something like that. But
But
at that
hey,
time,
16,
when you're
yeah,
when
that's
you're
good
16, you're
money.
like, I'm in the money.
Yeah.
Hey, bubble gum for everyone. You know, and
Hey, $20 back in, 2016 when we were kids, right? I mean, that was good money. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
2016, right? Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was that was my first paying gig, and then I thought, yeah,
And how long did
well,
you
what
do
if
that
I
for?
went to school
How long did you do
for it?
that for?
So yeah, but so I just ended up from my entire high school career just um, every day after school I would attend a rehearsal of some sort of theater performance, and it wasn't really at our school, as you know, our theater program, we didn't really have anything at our
We
high
didn't really
school.
have anything, just
Yeah.
in terms of anything. There was like, you know, it was like the cafeteria, there was like an old sock and they would just like throw
It
it
was
in there
like,
and they'd be like,
the sock club. Join
yeah,
the sock club,
yeah,
kids.
just
We put buttons on it and make it eyes. Yeah, it was. So we
hours of
um,
fun, hours.
hours of fun with those socks until the holes came, and it was
To
all
this day, I
downhill.
miss that club. I really,
And
I learned a lot.
uh, so I would join other high schools actually in the area, like Warren Mott or Clintondale High School or Sterling Heights. So I'd go to these other places where they would be in desperate need of having men in, or well, not men, teenage boys in their high school musicals, because it was, you know, of course, 90% females that would show up to these auditions. And so I just basically
So
kept
you could
busy.
audition back then when we were in high school. You could audition at other high schools. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, they had the caveat of they would choose the leads from the high school first, and then, you know, so I was like, you know, in West Side Story, third shark on the left, or the 14th apostle in Jesus Christ Superstar, or something like that, you know. But I didn't mind so much because it was just a community that I had never experienced before, and having that theater crowd, and all of a sudden I had friends who were not going to school with me really, but people from all over the, you know, the Metro Detroit area, and we just kind of became these traveling, wandering, this group that went from school to school and following the director basically, and each year through my high school career. So that's how I got into it, and then I thought, well, maybe I could possibly do this for college, because, you know, then there's the question of what are you going to do for college, and what do you want to major in, and I wasn't really 100% sure, but I had a
You
friend.
Did you think, sorry to interrupt, but did
No,
you
no.
think when you were in high school and you were doing these, and even though they were, you know, in your own words, like you were playing the 16th apostle or the 11th apostle,
Right.
or whatever, like, did you ever?
The 14th apostle, thank you. The 16th, that was a kid who was not so good. Right.
Yeah, yeah. You're like,
Right.
that was safe for the kids who didn't have talent. Okay,
That's right.
that's
Yeah. It
really,
was,
um,
but anyway,
but
yes.
like, did you sort of like envision that back then? You know, did you like sort of have that in your fantasy world of like one day I'm gonna be on TV, like this is it? Like, did
To
you
be
have that
honest,
fight in your sister?
not really. In those early days, I was fascinated by the show Cops.
Uh-huh.
And I was
Really?
like, bad boys, bad boys. I'm like, maybe I'm going to be a cop, and I'm going to like bust down doors and like come in and guns ablazing and save the day. And that was going to be my like, that was going to be my cool. And then I could maybe go to college for that someday in criminal justice or whatever. So even though I was doing the plays and I was enjoying it, I really didn't think of it as a lifetime career. Even when I started getting paid at age 16, I thought, well, that's just so far out of reach for somebody who's living in the middle, you know, Roseville, Michigan. So it wasn't really even a possibility in my eyes
Hmm.
at that time. And I, I was in at a friend's place, and we were listening to a musical of Chess the Musical, which is written by the guys from ABBA, the same people who wrote Mamma Mia,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and then lyrics by Tim Rice, and the one song "One Night in Bangkok" that became famous in the '80s from Murray Head. That was the most famous song from it, and I was like, oh my god, this music is awesome! This is incredible. And he said, you know what? There's a school in the Upper Peninsula, way far away, that's doing this. I have no idea how he found out. This is way pre internet days, so I have no idea how someone in, you know, Detroit found out about this Upper Peninsula production. But I said, you know, have you ever been up to the Upper? No, let's go on a road trip. We went up there on a road trip and saw the show. And and I was 17. I was sorry, just turned 17, but I hadn't decided on where to go to school or anything like that. But they said in order to give us free tickets and a super discount rate on the dorms of where we were going to stay,
You had to sign up on the spot for school
I
there.
had to. No, well, I just basically had to. Yeah, I just
They're
sign my
like,
life
"Oh, we're gonna
away.
need your
Whatever I
tuition
can do for
before
a
you
free
come in."
ticket.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to see the show, whatever it takes. Yeah.
I'm gonna give blood for free pizza later too. Um, um, so I show up and they're like, well, you know, if you show up as a potential student and take a tour of the campus and, you know, sign up for this and that, you can stay in the dorms. I think it was like $7 a night or something ridiculous.
Really? Wow.
And yeah, it was nuts. But back in the olden days,
Yeah.
$7 to
You're
buy
like, I
your
just
horse.
made $25 in dinner theater, so I'll take 3 rooms.
Excuse
really
me,
like-
yes, for all 3 of my personalities, yes. I mean,
Just 3 back then? Huh, they've really grown since then. They've really
yes,
grown.
yes.
Yeah.
So I went up there and I went as a student, you know, and I'm with my friends and we're taking a tour of campus and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is actually really beautiful up here, and I see the production and I think to myself, well, what if I did theater for you know
Northwestern.
my career at Northern Michigan University
Northern
instead
Michigan.
of going into police, you know, as being a police officer. And they said, well, while you're here, would you know, maybe you can audition for scholarship. I auditioned and I got a scholarship and I ended up getting a free ride to Northern Michigan University. Actually, I was a very lucky boy.
Wait, you
And so,
auditioned and they gave you a scholarship, like based
yeah,
on
that
wow.
wasn't a full, yes, but that was only a partial. The one that I auditioned for, the free ride was something else. But I ended up going to school for free there, which was amazing, and then just becoming a theater scholarship full time, a major theater major there, and that was when I, of course, started thinking of it as a possible career. And at that time, I only had experience with on-stage theater, um, and it wasn't until later on afterwards that I would start to do commercials and the occasional TV shows. And
What was your first commercial?
first commercial, I think my first commercial might have been for an insurance company. Yeah, and it was like a Safe Auto commercial or something where I had to. I played some goofy character talking to himself in the mirror, and
Was it back in Michigan?
no, this was just after I graduated college. I went to a theater company in Ohio.
So
So then
so do you feel like that process of going to college and like, do you feel like the minute you got there, you were like, okay, this is it. I guess I'm on track to be an actor. Like, were you determined at that point to sort of make that work?
absolutely, yeah, I knew that at that point of my career, at that point in college, I realized that there was absolutely nothing else that I could possibly do that would make me as happy and as fulfilled as being a full-time performer. And it's tough because I mean the reality is that of course it is like a horribly very tough biz and the statistics are out of this world difficult and downright near impossible. But only if you feel that you could possibly do anything else, nothing. I mean, if you can do nothing else, I mean, if you, I used to have nieces and nephews who were like, you know, talking about, oh, you do acting, and I would love to do it too someday, and I think I might become an actress, and I say, you know, there's if you could possibly do anything else in this world, whether it be writing or flipping burgers and be happy about it and do acting as a hobby on the side, then go for it because the mental anguish that a performer has to go through, not just actors, but dancers, models, you know, all kinds of performers, they have to go through rejection all the time, constantly. And it can be it's tough if you don't have the right mindset for it.
So if you could go back now, having given that advice to your nephews and nieces, and you could go back to Northern and say, you know what, instead I'm going to become a cop, would you have done that and done acting on the side?
No, definitely not, because I wouldn't have been happy. I wouldn't have felt 100% fulfilled. And and that's why I stuck with it all this time, you know, because it's the one thing that I feel. I know it sounds, self-deprecating, but it's the one thing I think that I'm actually good at. So I mean, aside from other, I can of course learn skills and everything like that, but I could not imagine myself in an office 9 to 5. I could not imagine myself having to sell something. There was a short period of time where for like a month and a half, that I sold used cars as an adult, and it was like horrible time of my life.
Really?
It was just god awful. But to those who can do it, that I say congratulations. I mean, I tried teaching for a short time before, and those people who are teachers, I mean, I bow down to them. They have skills that I wish I had, whether it be patience or just the, uh, you know, but it just wasn't for me. I couldn't do it. The only thing that possibly makes me happy is to perform to some degree. And that could be on television, or that could also be in animation, cartoons, or video games. I still feel that, or even live on stage, I still kind of get that same type of, that rush, just in different ways.
Well, I think a lot of people are like you. I think a lot of people kind of hate their jobs,
Yeah.
like in terms of like working in an office or selling insurance or, doing whatever. I mean, not everybody. I think some people are really blessed like you to sort of find their calling and to really like what they do. But, I think what's so incredible about your story is that we did come from Roseville, Michigan, which is sort of like, you know, not the most glamorous place on the planet, not some place where you have hope of becoming an actor. Like you said, I mean, you kind of like hit the nail on the head when you were like, I mean, I was in Roseville. Like, I didn't think that that was possible at the time, and that's sort
Mm,
of the, I think, the thing that sort of a lot of people go through. Like, unless you are born and raised in LA and your mom's a talent agent or whatever, you don't really think that this is something that you can do. But people
mm.
still go out and do it. So I think it's amazing that you were just like, hey, this is the only thing that's going to make me happy. So I'm going to do it. I mean, weren't you ever scared? Like, were you ever like, well, what if this doesn't work out? Or what if I
Oh,
fail?
ever. I mean, that's a constant fear. I mean, even today, I think. I mean, I'm in my 40s and I have a career already, but as soon as I finish a job, I'm unemployed. That's the whole thing about being a freelance actor. I mean, I'm currently recording an animation this week, and next week I finish up another one for Netflix, which is great, and I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
But the moment that's done, I'm looking for another gig. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
may have TV shows airing at the moment, but like, I'm still auditioning this week for other future gigs, for other future things. So that fear is always, I think, in the back of everybody's mind. I think even, some of the famous stars that we see, B-list, A-list actors, um, they have to continuously think about their career, like what's their next film. Like, you're only as good as the last film you were in. And
Yeah.
and think of all the people who were like really really famous and then all of a sudden just disappeared for years and years and years. I mean, some of the Oscar winners that we saw this year, was that Renee from Judy? Is it I'm sorry, anyway, she had not done a but she
I'm
had
gonna,
not
I'm
done
gonna,
a
I'm gonna insert a cricket soundtrack
yeah,
after that.
cricket,
Like, I
thank
have
you.
no
But
idea
she had not,
who's what. I'm just so
okay. She had not done a movie for
Renee
6 7
Zellweger.
years.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Renee Zellweger.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
God, I can't say her last name, and I have a complicated last name, and I can't say her last name. Zellweger, right? Renee Zellweger. Whatever.
Right,
Close enough.
good, close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my whole point is that there are some people who will just go years and years without another huge gig, and so there is that little bit of pressure there. And while you're waiting for the next gig, the bills still have to be paid, and so you just gotta just make sure that you are prepared for that. But yeah, so there's always that fear, but you can't let that fear get you down. And that's that's the important thing, is just to follow whatever. Oh, was that the sirens? Are they coming after you there?
Oh yeah. So I kind of live on a busy street, and
Okay.
it's an
They
ambulance.
found us.
A lot of
They found
ambulance
us, Maria.
for some reason.
Let's log off.
I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take this in the car with me. We're just gonna be going 90 miles an hour. It's not a big deal. It's
That
not.
would be amazing.
As there's shots getting fired through the, but I think the big thing is that like you didn't let the fear paralyze you.
Right.
And so it's like your drive was bigger than your fear to do this, because, and what do you think that was? Maybe it was like the fear of having to do something else, or having to, like you said before in your own words, you're like, I didn't feel like I had the skill set to do anything else, even though you could have learned the skill set. Was it maybe just, you just couldn't imagine yourself doing anything else, or it was the fear of having to learn something else to do, or what do you think it was? In terms of
Yeah, I think you you hit a couple different things on the list. Yeah, there's the fear that I can see friends of mine who will just build something. They'll envision it in their head, and they just all of a sudden have a playground in their backyard for their kids. And I just think, my God, I think I can staple some headshots and resumes, but that's about as much construction as I'm able to do. Or I see somebody who's really skilled at anything, and so that is a fear that, like, if I didn't do this, what would I do? So sure, that whole skills thing, but it's just it's something, to be honest, I don't dwell on it. I can't dwell on it, um, because it's kind of one of those things where if you add that level of anxiety or worry, then it's just gonna it's just gonna ruin your life in a way. If you're just
Yeah,
always worried about what the future is gonna hold. So,
yeah,
and I just hope for the best, and worst case scenarios, if they come around and I all of a sudden the work dries up, then it's not like I'm completely incompetent. I do have a college degree, and I can get some sort of job doing something else, but right now I have the luxury of just being a full-time performer, actor. So
which is amazing. And that's a huge talent in itself, because as an actor, you're more than just an actor. It's more than just memorizing your lines and getting the feeling and getting in the head. It's like you also have to be your own PR person. You have to go out there. I mean, you have an agent, but a lot of proactive actors that I know, they go out and they try to get jobs themselves, because let's face
absolutely.
it, sometimes agents are a little useless. So it's like you sort of have to go out there and just kind of do your own stuff too. So you're constantly like a media machine for yourself. Like you're constantly marketing yourself. And in LA,
Absolutely.
especially, it's just a huge networking town. Like every time you go out, you're working
It's
essentially.
true. And it took me a long time to get used to the whole networking thing, and being, because it's really hard for me to go out and say, "Hey, how you doing, stranger? My name is Michael, and some of the projects I'm working on are this, and this, and this, and
Yeah.
this. What do you do, and how can we work together?" And I loathe it with a passion.
Yeah.
But in this business, it's part of the
Part of the
prerequisite.
game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
of needing to go out and meet people and to be proactive. Like you said, I have friends who are so talented, and I see them just unfortunately not being proactive enough, and not getting out there and pushing and finding jobs. I mean, I definitely have to find things, and I do have agents that help me theatrically, and with commercials and also voiceover. But that still, every single day of my life, I am looking online with different sources to find auditions, and I'm proactively trying to get out there and find gigs on my own as well, because you have to in this biz.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And it's a business of like, when I was in the business, I was like, this is a business where you have to learn to love rejection, because you have to put yourself in a position to be rejected all the time. And it's really tough, like just the process of getting yourself. And I'm not saying like getting a job in any other field as well. It's the same thing, right? But it's just on I feel like with the acting thing, it's a more intense level because
Yeah.
if you're going in for a job as a graphic designer or a plumber or a doctor or whatever, they're not looking at you and they're like, well, you know what? We were hoping for somebody shorter or taller. You're a little
Exactly.
skinnier. You're too, like they kind of pick you apart. So it's sort of this, but you have
And
to have
it's true.
to do it. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to know. I mean, I would say that I audition for different things, whether it be voiceover or commercial or whatever, at least at least 6 or 7 different things per week.
Okay.
Okay. So out of that, I might get a gig confirming twice a month. So if you do the math, that's so much rejection that you can't even imagine. I mean, and again, like you said, yeah, too skinny, too big, too tall, too short, too young, too old. A lot of these things you can't even control.
Yeah.
But it's not. But you just got to tell yourself that the right stuff will come along eventually, and you'll get the part.
So it's all about really what I'm hearing from you is like staying in a positive frame of mind, because I feel like that's really what got you to this point, right? Going
Absolutely.
all the way from Northern, where you were doing plays in college, right, to like this point where you're at right now, where you're on HBO and you're doing Netflix and you're doing Amazon and you're doing all these things. It's like really, like, I love everything about, like, you can't really dwell on the anxiety of it. You can't, because if you dwell there, you're not living, and it's really just letting the bad stuff roll off your back and saying, hey, this is what I love to do, so this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to commit to doing. And I think that, for me, the reason I wanted to do this podcast was because I do know so many people who are in a position who are not going after what they want. And I think that that's a really human thing to do. Like, you want to be safe, you want to be secure, but nothing's ever really secure or safe. So how do you get to the point where you jumpstart yourself and you say, hey, I'm going to go after what I'm really passionate about, and I
Right.
think that for you is like, as you said, you just can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tricks to the trade too. Like, for example, just being realistic about things. That you're right about being positive and knowing that you're going to succeed. So that's what kind of gets you through. But at the same time, the sense of realism is important as well. Not only to keep your ego in check, so you're like, I'm the best, I'm going to succeed at everything. Stand back, world. Here I come. It's not always like that, or else
That's how
those
I
are the.
wake up in the morning. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
All right. Well, that's true. Everybody besides you, though, Maria, has to, keep themselves in check and to say, there's a lot of times where I'll see an audition that is emailed to me, and I know that I may not be right for that, whether it be because of a certain look that I have or a certain skill it's asking for. And,
Will you
you
go
know,
out
if
for it anyway?
no, because I know that I have to pick and choose the ones that are right for me. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, and also you're also generating um, so a bits of rejection that you don't need, because it's. I mean, I when I mean that, I mean, like, for example, if they were looking for a guy who is in a bike race, and I show up, this big guy, I'm not going to be right for that. And I know that going ahead of time. But there are plenty of people that I know who are like, well, I could ride a bike. I could be like in a bike race, and then you have to have that mindset of the realism as well. And so that you're not um, setting yourself up for disaster, setting yourself up for rejection, because there's plenty of that to go around for the stuff that you are right for.
Well, and it's also right, and it's also keeping your focus and your energy on the things that you could possibly get too, right?
Exactly.
I
Right.
have a friend, and the best advice he gave me when I was doing it was, he said, you have to build your brand. You have to figure out what's quintessentially you, And you have to go out for those roles where you think that that's what they're looking for, because eventually that's what's going to sell you on people. It's not
Mm.
trying to be something else or someone else. It's going to be like, what do you have? Okay, you're like funny, sassy, or whatever it is. Like, that's your thing, that's your brand, and that's what you put out there. So if
Right.
somebody's looking for a gymnast who does cartwheels and you don't do cartwheels, you're not going to go out for that role.
Right. But I know plenty of people who are like, well, I could learn how to cartwheel. I could do that. And, oh, dear Lord. And that's how you burn bridges with casting people as well, because they find out that, you're not right for it and that you're wasting their time. And, so it's a matter of just time is precious. And there's a lot of things that you just need to focus on, whatever what you said, your brand. That
So,
sense of realism is important, though.
so what's your
So
biggest?
staying positive.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, staying positive, but also realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important in anything. Absolutely. I mean, but definitely having like a vision of where you want to go. Because I think too that tends to be a big problem with a lot of people, where people will say, well, I'm unhappy. And then you say, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. So I think it's like really important to sort of have that vision of like, what is your ultimate goal? Where do you want to get to? And then you can map out how to get there. And you can still
Mhm.
be realistic about it. But, at least then you have sort of a map, because a lot of people don't have that. So what was your biggest challenge doing this?
Biggest challenge like in my career so far, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Um, I guess biggest challenge is just what we mentioned before, and that was when you first start off. When I first started off as a kid, like I said, I was involved with every show. I
Mhm.
went off to college. I was getting a scholarship. I was involved with every show. I was on stage basically whenever I wanted to be. Then all of a sudden you hit the real world and you become a grown up, and especially in this business, and all of a sudden the jobs are not flying at you anymore, and you have to really fight hard for them. So I would say when I was younger, fresh out of college, and not doing the theater stuff, but just trying to find jobs when they weren't finding me anymore.
Mhm.
Um, it the biggest challenge for me was realizing how I had that ego as a youth, as a kid, and overcoming that and humbling myself, and just say, okay, well, here's the reality. Um, you know, you might have been big in small town Michigan, but you ain't nothing now, kid, until you prove yourself. You know, so um, so it was, losing that ego, that was difficult.
So how did you do that? How did you find jobs when they weren't looking for you? Like what was your like, because like how did you just not sort of give up at that point and go, I don't know what's going on. I can't find a job. Like
Right. I mean, you could just sit on your thumb and, just say, oh, I'll just wait tables and wait to be discovered someday. But that's never going to happen. I mean, there are different avenues to take. If it's theater, there are different theater conferences that you can go to where you're performing in front of, um, you know, 10, 20, 100 different theater companies, and they may or may not call you back. Or there's also, you know, proactive workshops or industry intensive evenings where you perform in front of managers or perform in front of agents, or websites that you can join nowadays. In 2020, it's a whole nother world than when I first started off. But you join these websites and you pay a yearly fee, and all of a sudden every day your inbox on your email is filled with different auditions that are maybe appropriate for you, maybe not. So, but you have to proactively join these sites, go to these gatherings, these auditions, or these intensives, join classes, go to these networking events. You have to put a fire under your butt and motivate yourself to do it, because if you don't motivate yourself, nobody will. And I think too many people, unfortunately, rely on others to motivate them for them, whether that's because of their upbringing or because of their insecurities as an adult or whatever their reason may be. But being proactive and lighting your own fire under your butt, that's what it takes.
So
And I got a fiery butt, let me tell you.
I remember. Clear a room, that's for sure.
Woohoo!
So that's really like sage advice. Do you have any other sort of advice for anybody who's doing this or doing anything that they feel like is hard and they want to like follow their passion somehow? What do you got to say?
Well, if it's acting that you're going into, one of the things that really helped for me is that I was with a theater company in Ohio for 7 years, and I got to do a lot of film and television commercials and a few voice things, being in small town and being in Columbus, Ohio, of all places.
Why did
And
you go to Ohio? Sorry.
well, it was a theater company that I was working for. I was at a theater company in Columbus, and I got another job with, in Cincinnati. And so, these are full-time on-stage theater performance venues. So I would just, but while I was there, I had the opportunity to do other things like commercials and such. But I got to be big fish in little pond and get a nice resume together and a reel. And even going to Hong Kong, where I was doing quite a bit of voice acting. I did over 60 different series, animation series in the years that I was there. And that was because they used a core group of about 12 of us full time as voice actors. And because you're big fish in little pond. And so when you're asking for advice, I would say that one of the great things that I did was I became big fish in little pond, not only in Columbus and Cincinnati and Hong Kong, but I gained all of this experience, demo reel material, films, commercials. Then when I came to LA, I had something more than just a dream and a hope, because so many people will do that. They're like, I'm going to California and make it big, and unfortunately
And what's wrong with that?
Hey, nothing at all.
I'm like, that sounds a little familiar. Okay.
But I mean, that's and I came actually very close to coming out to California too soon in a way.
I actually remember you and I had a conversation. This was years ago, and I think we messaged on Facebook, and you said, I think you were leaving Ohio and you were trying to choose between Vegas, LA, and Hong Kong. And I said,
This would have been MySpace days, by the way.
Was that MySpace? Was that back in MySpace? It could have been MySpace. But I remember saying,
yes.
Oh, you need to go to LA. And you're like, yeah, I'll think about it. And then the next thing I see, you're like, on a plane to Hong Kong. Bye.
Yeah.
So how did it went out?
Yeah, well, because that was just because I was with that theater company in Cincinnati at the time, and I was about to come out to Los Angeles, and I was thinking, like, Los Angeles, like you said, Vegas, there's a lot of entertainment things going on there.
Yeah.
Or what? And I had this opportunity where I saw all my friends coming out to Los Angeles, and they had this going on, that going. Mike, come out here. We got this. We're doing this show and this. And oh, that sounds amazing. So my whole idea was that I was gonna pack up and move out to LA. But before the rich and famous part comes along, I got to pay the bills. So I was looking at monster.com and all these other things for how can I find a job that'll pay the bills that I won't like hate my life. And so I'm looking at like theater management jobs or working in a box office of a theater company or something related to theater management, whatever I can. And I see this thing for Hong Kong for a theater company there. Well, never gonna get that. What the hell? Send it off. The next thing I know, I'm getting a call at nighttime, and they're wanting to fly me out and put me up for a 1-year contract to work with them in Hong Kong. And I thought, what an amazing opportunity! I'd never been to Asia before, so I'll put everything I own into storage in Cincinnati and go for 1 year to Hong Kong. And then after that 1 year is over with, I take everything and I head off to LA. Skip ahead 13 years, and So
Where is that
that
storage unit now?
yeah, that's
Is it,
storage.
is it still collecting dust in that storage unit? What?
I actually, it was a couple years into because after my first year, I was like, okay, 2 years, and then that's it. And then after 2 years, I got more opportunities to do voice acting full time and be the promo person for True TV Asia and Cartoon Network Asia. And I was like, okay, well, all right, 3 years. And anyway, that's when I came back and got rid of everything. So
I was gonna say, I kind of wish the story was, and then one day I turn on Storage Wars, and I'm like, "Hey, that's my dresser."
that's my stuff. Uh,
Oh, I forgot about that.
and that was how I made it big on
Yeah.
TV.
And that's when I knew I gotta make it big to replace my stuff now. That's it.
That's right. My old Nintendo set made it to Storage Wars. I'm gonna make it to HBO, damn it.
I'll show that Nintendo who the star is.
That's right. There's only room for one.
And you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's been an interesting little career of how to get here. But yeah, it's staying positive, staying realistic, and knowing that this is the one thing that truly makes me happy in order to, get by without having a grudge on my shoulder. So,
And that's the most important thing, right? Because I mean, you only have one life. So it's really the most important thing to be is happy. And so if
yeah.
you can do something that you're happy at and you succeed at, I mean, it's been a long road. I'm not going to, I'm not going to sugarcoat this and be like, well, Michael Pizzuto got out of college and went immediately to Hong Kong and started doing all these shows. Like, I know it's been a really long road for you to get to this point, but you stuck with it, and that's amazing. And now you're here. So what's your next thing?
So, well, these blasted little NDAs, they kind of get in the way of me getting to be able to chat about too many things. But I do have an animation that I'm working on that's out of Japan, but being done here in Los Angeles. And that'll be on Netflix at, I'm guessing, the end of the year. And then I have, so that Domino's commercial I just did came out, but I have a video game.
Saw that with the Norm.
Yeah, but, I have a video game for PlayStation 2 and Xbox, or PlayStation 2, PlayStation 4, and Xbox that will come out in May. And then this week I'm flying to Sacramento to shoot a film there. So
That's right. You're in my neck of the woods. That's right. That's right.
yes, I'm off to
really, yeah.
fabulous sunny Sacramento where dreams come true.
Hey, it's the tree capital of the world, so don't knock it. So, tree capital. So it's very.
I'll be sure to.
Have you been to Sacramento before?
I've never been. It'll be my first time. They're flying me from LA to Sacramento, and
so you're gonna go from LA, which is kind of a concrete wasteland, to Sacramento, which is like all trees. So it's totally different vibe.
I'm looking forward to that. Definitely.
You can only make fun of LA if you've lived in LA. I'm just kidding. You can make fun of LA.
Oh, and there's plenty to make fun of here. Trust me. Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you. Thanks for doing this, and it's good to see your face. And
yeah, it's good to catch up after so long, and hopefully you can get your butt down to LA some point, or I'll come up there to the Bay Area and we'll.
Yeah, have you been to San Francisco?
I haven't been up there yet.
Really? All right, hold on. I'm going to end this show and then we're going to catch up. And that's it.
All right.
That's my outro. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.